Now, the government may be able to separate the Maori water rights claim and the partial sale of state-owned assets, but the two issues appear to be on a collision course. To get a handle on what's happening, with us now in our Wellington studio is constitutional law specialist Mai Chen. Mai, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Good morning, Rawdon.
So the Tribunal's findings aren't binding, we know. The government said it may ignore its findings anyway, and that this claim by the Maori Council is just, quote, opportunistic. Which begs the question, what's the point of the Tribunal?
Well, the Tribunal has been set up by legislation. It's multi-million-dollar funded by taxpayers, and its purpose is to hear complaints by Maori that there may be breaches of the treaty. And indeed, in this case, you can say it's opportunistic, but if you look at previous claims and decisions, not only by the Tribunal but by the courts, you'll find that there has been recognition of customary rights, including to rivers and to water, by both the Tribunal and the courts.
So, Mai, let's talk about this idea of whether there is, therefore, a breach of the treaty here. Let's say that the government goes ahead with the sale regardless, before the treaty determines if Maori have any ownership rights to the water. That would potentially be a breach, would it not? And if so, what are the implications of that breach?
Well, Rawdon, the Office of Treaty Settlements witness on behalf of the Crown herself said on Tuesday, when asked, would it be a breach of the treaty if the Crown went ahead with the sale of the shares prior to the water rights issue being determined, said yes. So the difficulty for the Crown is that they've got these concessions being made in the Tribunal. They've got these previous decisions that recognise customary rights and also recognise that they haven't been validly, legally extinguished. So the difficulty is, where does that leave the Crown? I understand that it's important that the government is speaking, but the difficulty is that you do have these precedents, and also the claim is going on right now. And tomorrow, Rawdon, the parties will be closing the case, after which the Tribunal will sit down and they will consider it. If the government decides that they don't want to take on board the recommendations, well, of course, at that stage, the claimants can always decide to go to the courts and have this matter determined. But you have to take into account cases like that, which resulted in the foreshore and seabed. And what was the punchline? Well, the punchline of those cases, Rawdon, was that there's a recognition of customary Maori rights that are not validly extinguished.
And it's looking increasingly as though we've got a similar situation here. Just one thing I want to say, you say the Crown possibly doesn't have a leg to stand on here, but last night we heard on Close Up, it was Stephen Franks, a legal expert, who said the substantive rights, though, don't go in favour of Maori here.
I'm not sure what he means by that. At the end of the day, there is a recognition of general principle, but Rawdon, with respect to every iwi and every hapu out there, I mean, we've recently just had a Supreme Court case called Paki. That was about a particular hapu, not an iwi, but a smaller hapu getting their rights to riverbeds actually determined by the Supreme Court. They need to go, they need to say, look, these are our factual circumstances, this is what we did and didn't use, and get a determination. So I'm not sure what he means by substantive rights. All I know is there was a case, it resulted in the foreshore and seabed legislation, it recognised customary Maori rights that are not validly extinguished. And all I'm saying is that as recently as a couple of weeks ago, the Supreme Court brought out a case. It was the Paki case, and once again, they are recognising our hapu's rights to customary rights with respect to riverbeds. So all I'm saying is that there's a lot of politics, and you've got to slice through it. You've got to go back and look at what the Tribunal's done in the past and what the courts have done in the past. And, you know, if you look at those, well, I guess it would not be surprising that there would be some recognition of Maori interests in water.
Let's say at this stage that the government now decides to wait for a definitive answer from the Tribunal, and the Tribunal finds, as you're indicating, that Māori do have rights of ownership or of governance of the water. What is going to happen then? Are we going to see this go to the Supreme Court?
Well, we may well do that. At the end of the day, these are all tools. They're tools in the basket. You can go to the Tribunal, it's set up by statute. You can go to the courts if you want. And of course, there are three branches of government, so that then goes back to the government. The government of the day makes the decision. That's the executive branch. If they don't like it, then the claimants can go to the courts, which is the judicial branch. If the judiciary brings down something, and of course they do make binding decisions, and the executive doesn't like it, which is the government, then of course the executive can always go to Parliament and pass legislation. That is exactly what happened in foreshore and seabed. So we may be facing another situation, and from the perspective of Mighty River Power and all of those other electricity SOEs, the real concern is with the a share sale down, that we are looking at a delay. That's the concern, and you know, in business, time is money, and that's really the concern for the government. I mean, we have a very short term of government. This is a key platform that they campaigned on, and Rawdon, you know, the concern for New Zealanders is you've got a party, they campaigned on it, they say they got a mandate, and they're not able to put this through. But is that because Maori are being opportunistic, or is that because they didn't think about these issues and make sure that these risks were covered off?
And the process right now is potentially tripping them up. Mai Chen, thank you very much for your time this morning. Much appreciated.